Fenkell Avenue by Venny Hainsworth. Part 1. The Block That Breathed. Fenkell and Greenfield don't sleep, they pace. The avenue hums like it got a heartbeat of its own. Buses sighing at the corners, storefront lights blinking like tired eyes. Everybody on the west side knows the rhythm. Everybody knows the rules. And everybody knows Fresh. They say his name the way you say whether casual, careful. Fresh moved through the block, clean, always sharp, always calm. No loud jewelry, no sloppy moves. If chaos was the language of the streets, Fresh spoke in full sentences. Folks swore he was the cleanest, freshest nigga on the west side, maybe all of Detroit, but what really set him apart was how quiet he kept it. Fresh came up right here. Same cracked sidewalks, same corner store with the crooked sign, same winter winds that cut through your bones. He learned early that the block remembers everything. It remembers who panics. It remembers who talks too much. And it remembers who keeps their word. He kept his. By the time Fresh turned grown, his name carried weight without him lifting a finger. He didn't chase attention, it found him. People noticed how he moved and never rushed, never sloppy, always a step ahead. When trouble bubbled up, Fresh already knew. When plans changed, he was already adjusted. The block respected that. At dusk, Fresh leaned against a brick wall near Greenfield, watching the day fold into night. He nodded at the old heads, checked in with the kids hooping down the street, eyes always scanning, but never wild. He wasn't flashy. He was precise. Everybody wanted to know how he stayed untouched when the city was always reaching. Fresh never answered that question out loud. He believed some things worked better when left unsaid. But even legends got beginnings. Before the name, before the whispers, there was a choice one night on Fenkell that split Fresh's life into before and after. A moment when he realized the block could either break him or build him. The streetlights flickered. Fresh pushed off the wall and walked toward it. Part 2. The Making of Fresh. Before the name carried weight, Fresh was just another kid on Fenkell, watching who survived and who disappeared. He learned early that talent wasn't enough, discipline was the difference. The block taught fast lessons, but the real game came from a man everybody called UNC Ray. Young Ray wasn't loud. He didn't flex. He watched. He moved like time was on his side, even when it wasn't. People said he'd seen every version of the street and lived through the ones that buried others. When Ray spoke, Fresh listened. Ray taught Fresh how to think ahead. Not just the next move, the move after that. He showed him how to stay clean in dirty situations, how to keep business tight and emotions tighter. Noise brings attention, Ray would say. Attention brings problems. Fresh took that to heart. Mistakes came, but never twice. Fresh learned to read rooms, read people, read silence. Ray made him earn trust the hard way by being consistent when nobody was watching. That consistency became Fresh's signature. When Ray stepped back, Fresh stepped forward. Same rules, sharper focus. He didn't rush to rise. He built it brick by brick. By the time people started calling him the cleanest on the west side, Fresh already knew why. That's how the block got the man from Part 1, and that's how legends stay breathing on Fenkell Avenue. Part 3. Somebody watching. Fresh didn't believe in coincidence. On Fenkell, patterns meant pressure, and lately, the pressure felt different. Corners that stayed predictable started switching faces. New cars rolled through too slow. Conversations died mid-sentence when he showed up. Not fear, calculation. Somebody was watching. The name didn't travel fast. It didn't need to. It moved in whispers. Marlowe wasn't from Fenkell, and that alone made him dangerous. He came from the other side of the West with money behind him and patience in short supply. Where Fresh moved clean and quiet, Marlowe moved strategic and bold, testing limits, pushing lines, seeing who folded. He wasn't trying to outwork Fresh. He was trying to replace him. Same timing, Same roots, different energy. Fresh clocked it immediately. Unc Ray's voice stayed in his head. When somebody wants your spot, they don't come for you first. They come for what's holding you up. So Fresh tightened everything. Loyalty got checked. Moves slowed down. Silence got heavier. He let Marlowe believe there was space to step into. One night near Greenfield, under a streetlight that flickered like it knew something, Fresh finally saw him face to face. No words. No threats. Just a look that said this wasn't personal. Fresh didn't blink, because on Fenkell Avenue, everybody learns the same lesson eventually. The loud don't last, and the blood always choose A's. Part 4. Line crossed. Fresh got the call just after sunset. Short, tight, no panic, but the tone said enough. One of the houses was hit, not sloppy, not random, clean sweep. Doors still standing, lights still on, but the energy was wrong. Too quiet, like the place had been stripped of its breath. Whoever did it knew exactly what they came for and exactly what they wanted it to mean. Marlowe. Fresh didn't rush over. That's what everybody expected. That's what Marlowe expected. Instead, Fresh sat still and let the anger settle where he could feel it without letting it drive. That house wasn't just business. It was history. It was trust. It was a message being sent loud enough for the whole West Side to hear. And Fresh heard it clear. This wasn't competition anymore. This was disrespect. He walked through the block later that night, face calm, eyes colder than usual. People felt the shift before he said a word. When Fresh moved like that, it meant somebody had crossed a line they couldn't uncross. Unc Ray's voice came back, steady as ever. Once they touch what's yours, they already decided how far this goes. Fresh nodded to himself. Marlowe wanted attention. Wanted reaction. Wanted the spot. What he didn't understand was simple. Fresh didn't explode when he was mad. He calculated, and whatever came next wouldn't be loud. It would be final. Part 5. Code over chaos. Marlowe thought noise was power. That's where he messed up. Fresh didn't move off anger heat, moved off code. Rules set long before this moment. Rules you and Corey drilled into him when Fresh was still watching from the shadows. A code built on patience, timing, and silence. Marlowe's crew started feeling it before they understood it. Phones stopped ringing back. Safe faces went missing from corners. Meetings didn't line up the way they used to. One by one, Marlowe's people slipped out the picture. Not dramatic, just gone from the equation. No warnings, no speeches, no chaos. Fresh never rushed it. He let Marlowe sit in confusion, wondering why his foundation kept cracking without a sound. The block noticed too. When people stopped saying certain names out loud, that meant something had shifted. What Marlowe never understood was simple. Fresh wasn't emotional. Fresh wasn't reckless. Fresh wasn't chasing revenge. He was calculated. Every move had a reason. Every silence had weight. Fresh believed if you had to explain what you did, you already did too much. So he didn't explain. He erased problems quietly and kept moving forward. By the time Marlowe realized what was happening, it was already late. The West Side wasn't buzzing anymore. It was watching and fresh. Fresh stayed clean, hands steady, mind sharp, just like he was taught. Part 6. Ruthless, not reckless. People started getting it twisted. They thought Fresh was wild now, thought he'd lost control, thought the pressure cracked him. They were wrong. Fresh wasn't reckless. Reckless is loud. Reckless makes mistakes. Fresh was ruthless. That meant every move had purpose, no wasted energy, no extra emotion. He didn't act fast, he acted right. When Fresh decided something had to end, it ended clean, without ripples. The West Side felt it in the air. Less noise, less guessing, more certainty. Folks moved different when they knew chaos wasn't running. Things order was. Marlowe finally understood the truth, too late. This wasn't a war. This was a correction. Fresh didn't need to prove anything. His calm said enough. The block didn't question him anymore. They adjusted around him. That's when you know power settled in. Gray once told him, anybody can be dangerous when they're angry. Only a few can be dangerous when they calm. Fresh stayed calm because reckless burns out. But ruthless lasts. Part 7. When the noise fades, Marlowe disappeared. No speeches, no goodbye. Just gone. One day he was the name buzzing in every corner conversation. Next day, silence. The kind of silence that answers questions without saying a word. The streets talked anyway. They said Fresh cleared the board without breaking a sweat. Said the West Side felt organized again. Said order had returned and everybody knew who it belonged to. Fresh heard all of it but didn't feed into it. He never chased rumors. He let them chase him. That's when he noticed her. She wasn't part of the noise. Didn't move like she needed attention. Light-skinned, calm presence, hair falling naturally down her back. There was something steady about her, like she wasn't impressed, but she wasn't scared either. They crossed paths more than once. Same spots, same timing, no rush, just familiarity building without effort. Fresh like that. She didn't ask questions, didn't assume. She talked about normal things, life, dreams, getting out the way when things felt heavy. For the first time in a long while, Fresh wasn't Fresh in name. He was just a man standing still long enough to feel something else. The streets were loud, the crown was his. But peace was starting to look different. Part 8. Southern Pressure. The city felt it before names ever surfaced. New accents, new faces, different energy. A crew from down south slid into Detroit, quiet but confident, moving like they'd done this before. They didn't ask permission. They didn't study history. They just started shaking the streets, testing boundaries, seeing who would react first. And people reacted. Fresh didn't. He watched. The South crew moved fast, too fast. Money flashing early, trying to buy influence instead of earning respect. That told Fresh everything he needed to know. They were strong, sure, but they were impatient. That's when Jade started acting different. Not nervous, not scared. Focused. Fresh noticed little things, how she clocked conversations, how she picked up on names before they mattered, how nothing about the new crew surprised her. When the streets buzzed, Jade already seemed a step ahead. Fresh finally asked her straight. She didn't dodge it. Jade told him she'd seen this kind of move before. Different city, same playbook. She knew how crews like that operated, how they recruited, how they pressured blocks, how they fell apart when the wrong button got pushed. What she didn't say right away was this. She wasn't just watching the streets. She was connected to them in ways Fresh hadn't expected. Fresh didn't flinch, didn't question her loyalty, didn't raise his voice. He just listened, because power respects power, and secrets respect silence. The South crew thought they were shaking the city. What they didn't know was this. Fresh wasn't the only one in control anymore. And Jade had a past that could change everything. Part 9. No games. Day finally showed his face. Head of the Southern crew, calm voice, heavy presence. The kind of man who believed power was taken face to face. He didn't send messages through corners or whispers. He came straight at Fresh, letting it be known the South wanted territory, influence, and respect. And Fresh. The streets buzzed again. Old fear, new curiosity. People waited to see who would blink first. What nobody saw coming was Jade. The pressure followed Fresh home now. eyes on his movements, cars circling slower, questions being asked in places they didn't belong. That's when Jade stopped pretending the past stayed buried. She told Fresh the truth. Before Detroit, before peace, before him, Jade lived a different life. One built on precision, discipline, and final decisions. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't emotional. She was trained. When Dady's right-hand man started pushing too close, testing boundaries, Jade made a move not loud, not messy, just enough to send a message that couldn't be ignored. The message was simple. Some lines don't get crossed twice. By morning, the streets understood something new. Fresh wasn't standing alone. And Jade wasn't somebody to threaten. Day felt it immediately. The shift, the warning, the realization that this city wasn't playing by Southern rules. Detroit had its own code. And now, Fresh and Jade were both part of it. Part 10. Power Duo. Day should have let it go. Coming at Fresh was one thing, but trying Jade, that was the wrong move. The moment word reached her, something old unlocked. Not anger, not fear, muscle memory, focus. The calm that comes from knowing exactly who you are when pressure hits. This wasn't about the streets anymore. This was personal. Whatever Jade had buried before Detroit didn't stay buried. The city felt the shift moves, shutting down, confidence draining out of Day's circle. Not chaos, not noise, just control slipping away. By the time the dust settled, the message was clear without being spoken. Jade wasn't a weakness. She was the edge. Fresh saw it up close for the first time, not the softness, not the calm conversations, but the precision, the certainty, the way she handled pressure like it belonged to her. He didn't flinch. He smiled, not because of destruction, but because he understood. You built like me, he told her quietly. Different paths, same code. From that moment on, the streets stopped talking about Fresh alone. Names started getting paired. Moves started getting calculated differently. Because power respects balance. And Detroit had just crowned something new. Not a king, a duo. Part 11. The city adjusts. The city didn't explode. It settled. That's how everyone knew it was real. After everything went quiet, Detroit moved differently. Corners that used to test limits fell back in line. Conversations got shorter. Decisions got smarter. People weren't guessing anymore. They were adjusting. Dady's name stopped ringing out like he used to. No rallies. No clapbacks. Just distance. His crew felt the shift first, then everybody else followed. Power doesn't announce when it's lost, it shows up in what people stop doing. Fresh stayed where he was. Same calm, same pace, same presence, like nothing shook him because nothing did. That's what made it heavier. He didn't chase credit. He let the city come to its own conclusions. And Jade, that's who they talked about in lowered voices. Not rumors, real respect. The kind earned when people realize you're not to be tested. Folks stopped looking at her like an attachment and started seeing her as a force. Someone who didn't need to be loud to be understood. Together, Fresh and Jade became a balance the city hadn't seen in a long time. Not chaos. Not fear. Structure. The West Side breathed easier. The South backed up. The city stayed watching. Because everyone knew one thing now. Detroit wasn't ruled by noise anymore. It was run by people who knew exactly when to move and when not to. Part 12. Wrong ears. Fresh and Jade's names were ringing now. Not just on the block. Not just in whispers. In places where names didn't echo but calmly got written down. What nobody saw coming was how far Day was willing to go. When the streets stopped answering him, he looked for another audience. One that didn't care about codes or respect. One that listened quietly and took notes. Day went federal. He tried to trade stories for safety, tried to rewrite the narrative with paperwork instead of power. To him, it was survival. To the streets, it was betrayal. Fresh felt it before he heard it. That shift again, the kind that didn't come with noise, just tension. Cars moving different, eyes lingering too long, questions floating where questions didn't belong. Jade caught it too. This wasn't street pressure. This was institutional. And that changed everything. They didn't panic. Panic was for people who hadn't planned for every version of trouble. Fresh and Jade had always known the streets weren't the only danger. He just didn't talk about the other one out loud. Day thought he found a reset button. What he didn't realize was this. Power built on silence survives noise, and truth bends when it comes from desperate mouths. Detroit started holding its breath again, not because chaos was coming, but because something heavier was moving underneath it all. Fresh looked at Jade.com as ever. Different game now, he said. Jade nodded. Same rules. And somewhere far from Fenkell Avenue, Day waited, hoping the wrong ears would save him. Part 13. Walls closing in. The pressure didn't hit all at once. It crept. Licenses got checked. Old faces stopped popping up. Rooms that used to feel safe suddenly felt smaller. Detroit wasn't loud anymore, was listening. Fresh felt it in the pauses. Jade felt it in the timing. Nothing was wrong on the surface, and that's what made it worse. Day's move started doing what it was meant to do, stretching time, tightening space. Not enough to strike, just enough to remind everyone that eyes were open and patience was thin. The kind of pressure that made mistakes expensive. Fresh slowed everything down. Not out of fear but control. He believed pressure revealed character, and he wasn't about to let the city see cracks that weren't there. Calm became strategy. Silence became armor. Jade adjusted too. She moved like someone who'd lived under this kind of weight before. Less visible, more intentional. When things get tight, she knew, you don't fight the walls, you reshape the room. The streets noticed the difference. People spoke in half sentences. Meetings got shorter. Trust became selective. Everybody understood something was coming, they just didn't know from which direction. And that was the danger, because pressure doesn't break everyone the same way. Some people panic, some people fold, and some people get sharper. Fresh and Jade got sharper. Whatever Day thought he started, he hadn't finished. And Detroit was watching, always what teen could, feel the moment stretching thin, like a wire pulled too tight. Something was about to give. Part 14. Something had to give. By the time the sun dipped low on Fenkell Avenue, everybody already knew something was about to break. Day had been moving reckless, talking too loud, trusting the wrong people, acting like the past wasn't creeping up on him when it had already pulled up to the curb. Streets don't forget, and neither did Carmen and Lucky. This wasn't anger anymore. This was business. The air felt heavy when they crossed paths, one of those moments where time slows but your heart don't. Day saw it in their eyes before anything else. No words, no warning, just a look that said it's over. When it happened, there was no hesitation, no shaking, no second guessing. They didn't miss. Day dropped, and with him went every loose end, every secret he carried that could have burned them later. The block went quiet, like it knew better than to react. Fenkell Avenue had seen this before. Karma exhaled slow. Lucky didn't look back, because here's the truth. On Fenkell Ave, you don't get unlimited chances. And when something gotta give, it's never the ones who came prepared. As they walked away, one thing was clear. This wasn't the end. This was just a shift. Part 15. Cracks in the concrete. Day being gone didn't bring peace. It brought attention. Police cars started circling Fenkell like vultures that learned the schedule. Unmarked ones too, the quiet kind that don't rush, don't blink, just watch. Phones felt heavier. Every knock sounded like it could be the knock. Fresh felt it first. Pressure always shows itself before it speaks. Inside the crew, little things started slipping. Missed calls, late drops, side conversations that stopped when Fresh walked in. Loyalty don't usually disappear, it leaks. Then came the twist nobody saw coming. It wasn't an enemy. It wasn't the South. It wasn't even the police. It was someone close. Someone who'd been there early, ate at the same tables, knew the rules, knew the routes, knew just enough to trade comfort for safety. Not a full snitch worse. A selective truth. Fresh caught it in a detail that didn't add up. A question the cops asked that only one person could have answered. That's when the calm returned, the dangerous kind. Meanwhile, Jade felt it too. Different pressure, her past and present colliding. The streets weren't just watching Fresh anymore. They were studying her. Old enemies remembered her name. Old habits whispered back. The power duo had never been stronger. But power doesn't crack from outside. It cracks from within, and as the walls tightened, one truth became clear. The next move wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be fast. It would be surgical, because when betrayal shows its face on Fenkell Avenue, you don't rush it. You let it reveal itself. Part 16. The one closest to the fire. The betrayal didn't explode. It unfolded. Fresh never confronted it, had it? He changed one route, shifted one meat, fed one piece of false informations, small enough to seem harmless, deadly enough to trace. And the cops bit. That's when the picture snapped into focus. It was Tone. Day one. Been around since before the money, before the name rang. The one Fresh trusted to move without supervision. The one Jade never quite liked, but never questioned. Tone wasn't trying to destroy Fresh. That's the dark part. He was trying to replace him. Tone had been leaking just enough to keep heat on Fresh while keeping his own hands clean. Let the pressure do the work. Let Fresh slip. Let the crown loosen. When Fresh finally sat him down, it wasn't dramatic. No yelling, just silence. Said the power duo made him disposable. Then Jade stepped in. He realized too late that Fresh learned patience. But Jade learned endings. Fresh didn't touch Tone. Didn't have to. He made one call, one decision. Tone didn't disappear. He was exposed to the streets, to the ones he'd crossed quietly, to consequences the cops couldn't save him from. By morning, everybody knew. Not the details. Just the lesson. Enemies didn't split them. Trust did. And now Fresh and Jade stood alone at the top, no buffers. No filters, no mistakes left to make. Because once betrayal shows itself, the game changes. It stops being about survival. It becomes about control. And control, that's where things get real dark. Part 17. Paid silence. The questions stopped first. No more late night knocks. No more cruisers idling too long. No more detectives pretending they just checking in. Paperwork got lost. Files misstated. Names misspelled. Cases that once felt hot suddenly went cold. Fresh didn't brag about it. He didn't have to. Everybody on Fenkell Avenue knew what time it was when the pressure vanished overnight. Cops don't disappear, they get comfortable. A couple uniforms found themselves living better than their checks said they should. New rides, new watchers, new attitudes, the kind that looked the other way without being asked. Jade noticed a shift immediately. Quiet like this ain't natural, she said. Fresh smile. That's the sound of money working. With the streets calm and the law distracted, they leaned into it. No apologies, no pretending they were anything else. They stopped trying to be careful and started being correct. Moves cleaner, circles tighter. Trust ration. This was their villain era, not loud, not sloppy. the kind that wears patience like armor. They moved like people who accepted what they were and decided to be the best at it. Still, somewhere under all that control, a truth sat heavy. Paid silence always expires, and when it does, the bill comes due with interest. But for now, Fresh and Jade enjoyed the calm, the power, the fear disguised as respect, because on Fenkell Avenue, villains don't announce themselves. They settle in. Part 18. Unbuyable. The calm didn't last. It never does. Fresh felt at first someone moving through the city without touching money. No bribes, no shortcuts, no favors owed, just pressure applied the old-fashioned way. Patience and timing. A new name started floating. Not loud, not flashy, but consistent. They called him Bishop. Bishop didn't chase corners or crews. He chased leverage. He showed up where deals were assumed, then declined them. Looked Fresh in the eye and made it clear this wasn't about territory or profit. This about balance, Bishop said. And right now, you tipping it. Fresh knew that tone. The kind that didn't care who you were yesterday. That's when Jade started slipping. Not breaking. Reverting. She slept lighter, talked less. Her eyes stayed sharp even when nothing was happening. Old instincts crept back in the kind you don't learn twice. She started moving alone again, mapping exits, clocking reflections, preparing for problems that hadn't arrived yet. Fresh noticed. You going somewhere I can't follow? He asked. Jade didn't answer right away. Bishop ain't like the others, she finally said. People like him don't want money. They want control. Or confession. That scared Fresh more than sirens ever did. Because Jade knew this type. She'd crossed paths with men like Bishop, before clean reputations, dirty patience, the kind who push you until you show your real face, and Jade's real face. It wasn't the one she'd been wearing for Fresh. Detroit felt it again, that low hum before a storm. The city wasn't choosing sides yet. It was watching to see who would blink. Fresh stood at the center of it, crown heavy. Jade stood just behind him, halfway between who she was and who she used to be. And Bishop waited, because some players don't get bought. They get answered. Part 19. First blood, clean hands. Bishop finally moved. Not loud. Not public. One quiet adjustment in the city's rhythm permits delayed. Funding rerouted. A few well-placed calls that shifted who got watched and who got waved through. Bishop didn't touch the streets. He touched the systems around them. Fresh felt it immediately. This wasn't pressure. This was positioning. While Fresh tried to read the board, Jade was already off it. She crossed the line Fresh couldn't. Not out of anger, out of instinct. The kind she'd buried when she chose him. The kind that comes back when someone threatens the whole structure. Whatever Jade did, she did it alone, clean, and without asking. Fresh found out after. He didn't raise his voice, didn't question her loyalty, but something shifted between them, the first real fracture, not about right or wrong, about limits. Before consequences could land, the city smoothed it over. Cops cleaned it up, reports rewritten, timelines adjusted, loose ends tucked away like they were always meant to disappear. Bishop watched it all happen without lifting a finger. That was the move. He let Jade step forward. Let Fresh hesitate. Let the law do the erasing. Now he knew something important. Fresh had lines he wouldn't cross. Jade didn't. And cops would always choose the path that kept their hands clean. The city settled again, but this time it wasn't calm. It was divided. Fresh stood at the center, realizing power doesn't just test enemies. It tests alignment. And Bishop. Bishop smiled because his first real move wasn't about winning. It was about separating. Part 20. No clean way out. Final chapter. The city was already holding its breath. Bishop made his move at dawn quiet, calculated, and personal. He didn't come for Jade first. He went straight for Fresh, dragging him into a corner so tight there was no room to think, only react. Every word Bishop spoke was pressure. Every second was a countdown. Fresh tried to stay solid, but Bishop knew where to press. Old loyalties, old fears, one wrong choice forced in the name of survival. Jade felt it before she saw it. That shift, that silence where Fresh should have been loud. By the time she reached him, the damage was done. Fresh wasn't himself anymore trapped. Between saving her and destroying everything they built, Bishop stood back, watching like it was chess and the board was finally cracking. Jade made the hardest decision of her life. Not for power, not for revenge, but because there was no clean way out. When it was over, Bishop disappeared into the smoke hurt, not broken, already planning his next life. But Jade didn't get the chance to breathe. The cops came fast, too fast. The same ones who once looked the other way now turned their backs on her. Deals shifted, names changed, and suddenly Jade was the problem they needed erased to make the books look right. Fresh was gone. The streets were quiet, and Jade stood alone in flashing lights, realizing the truth too late. You can survive the game and still lose everything. The city would tell the story wrong. They always do. But on Fenkell Avenue, legends are made by who wins. They're made by who pays the final price. Fade out,